Hello and welcome to Odds on Champions League Match Day 2. Games to analyze, the ones to be played on Tuesday with Dani Fisichella, with Alvaro Romeo. Hello, guys. I see already some comments upset by the defeats of Man City and the victory of Luton Town. Who could have predicted this? We have another video for the games on Wednesday, including Man City, of course, but now it's time to analyze the games with Bayern Munich, Man United, Real Madrid, Inter. So many good games. So sit tight, enjoy the video, and don't forget to press the like, subscribe, and ask any question to Alvaro and to Dani Fisichella. Let's go on with the show. And also remember that if you are looking for a bookmaker, we have a partnership with 1xBet, so you can get this exclusive welcome offer, 130%. Use our promo code with the link. Of course, they are offering all the games of the Champions League. Let's start analyzing this Match Day 2 in the Champions League with Group A. Here we have Copenhagen, Bayern Munich. This doesn't look like a Tuchel team, at least by the goals scored. We saw a 2-2 against Leipzig for Bayern Munich, but not only that, they are conceding a lot of goals, but also scoring 19 goals scored by Bayern Munich in the last 5 games. Of course, also with Harry Kane scoring goals. Should we expect a high-scoring game here, Alvaro Romeo?
I hope so, because my bet is Bayern to win and over 2.5 goals in the game. That's 157. Not a lot, but I will find more value in some other markets. Don't worry, dear listener. Number one, we have to say that Copenhagen, they were about to inflict a really remarkable defeat to Galatasaray the other day. But the red card for Elias Jellert just kill off a little bit the chances for them. And then at the end, Galatasaray managed to draw that game. A draw that, in all fairness, they deserve, because they had a lot of chances, Galatasaray, in the first half. And Copenhagen defended reasonably well, I think. I really did like the goal of Gonçalves against Galatasaray, because it looked like an easy one, but you still have to put it there. It was like a penalty from the edge of the box, but having a defender on the line, and he did score very nicely. Probably the best thing about Copenhagen was the tactical flexibility, because they started the game with the 4-3-3, then they changed to a 4-4-2 after they got themselves up in the scoreline, and then when they were reduced to 10 men, they played with the 5-3-1. And I like Nestrup, the manager. He wants to take part in the game, and he made some decisions as well. So I think that Copenhagen is a decent side, but they are playing against Bayern here. And, a few things about Bayern. First of all, the stats. They are unbeaten in 35 Champions League group stage games, which is really remarkable. And in match day 1, number one, they were the most successful in take-ons. They took successfully 17 out of 23 dribbles, which is a success rate of 74%, because they got players like Sané, because they got players like Alphonso Davies, and many more who actually they are very good dribblers, and they make the difference in this department. And they are also very fast, the leaders in sprints in the Bundesliga. Among the 11 fastest sprints, 4 have been recorded by Bayern players. So physically, they are that team. They are very strong. They've got the dribbling ability. And up front, they've got Harry Kane, who is scoring many goals and who is, in my opinion, one of the best penalty takers in the world, if you forget the one he took about France about a year ago. So,
kind of an important one.
It's a very important one, in all fairness. Yeah, you are right. But, I think that they are going to win this game. Really, Leroy Sané is scoring 2 the other day against Leipzig. He scored the brace, very good finishes. And I think that maybe Sané to score a goal 2.3 can be a very good return here, because Harry Kane scoring pays about 150, and it's not enough, in my opinion. Gnabry is going to be out with a broken arm, unfortunately for Bayern, and I'm not too sure about the goalkeeper, Ulreich. Right now, he's not the best goalkeeper. The other day against Leipzig, he made a really, really, really silly mistake, just passing the ball to an opponent, and it almost ended up in a goal for Leipzig. But, I trust on Bayern here. So Bayern to lead at 30 minutes is something that I do like here a lot too. 2.0.
Well, the weakness in this Bayern Munich, then, is the defense, that's for sure, or the goalkeeper, and the goalkeeper.
Only one clean sheet in the last 5, if we exclude the German Cup. But, against Manchester United, despite the scoreline 4-3, they always looked in control. They were always they were going to win. As soon as they put the foot on the accelerator, they were scoring. They are imperfect, I think, Bayern. Maybe they are even a little bit short in defense and midfield. But what is scary about them is that they can only improve. I don't think they'll stay at this level for the entire season. And they got so many options up front. Kane has already scored 9 goals, and he got Sané 5 goals in 6 Bundesliga games. So you don't know where the threat is gonna come. Yes, of course, they do concede goals, and it is worrying also that they conceded 4 of their 6 Bundesliga goals from dead ball situations. They conceded against Manchester United also from a set piece. So they need to improve that, of course. But, when you look at the Champions League record, it's so good that you cannot think about anything else by a Bayern Munich large win. They are unbeaten in 35 Champions League group matches, and they won each of the last 14 games at this stage. They drew 2-2 with Leipzig, of course, unbeaten in 17 away matches in the Champions League, won the last 6. So these are all good numbers, and they play a Copenhagen side who impressed us in Matchday 1. They lost 2-0 at home to Midtjylland, conceded in all the 4 games. In the last 4 games, if you exclude the cup, they made 4 changes at the weekend to the game to the team that drew 2-2 against Galatasaray. Last season, Copenhagen drew all the 3 home games. So you need to go maybe -1, -2 for Bayern Munich. But I'm going to go for something a little bit more left field. Bayern Munich to score a penalty. 340. They're going to be a lot into the box of Copenhagen, create a lot of chances. Harry Kane has scored the all 4 penalties he took for Bayern Munich, so he might score this one as well if he's given the chance. 340 Bayern Munich to score from the spot.
Interesting, Dani, very interesting, especially with these really low odds for Bayern Munich to win, 1.23. Also, don't forget about Choupo-Moting. He's also scoring some goals. So is telling us Blue Shark is going for Bayern to score in both halves. Or Renoir, for instance, Bayern Asian handicap -1.5, 3-0 result, for instance, for Bayern Munich. Tuchel is not Bayern type of manager. Blue Shark is telling us, he was a defensive manager, I would say, with Chelsea. Very good manager, don't take this wrongly. But Bayern is another philosophy, and this team is scoring plenty of goals, conceding plenty of goals. So it's very entertaining, as Bayern Munich is always entertaining to watch. Let's move on to the next game, much more interesting, in my opinion. Man United Galatasaray, much more interesting because Man United, they are in trouble, 4 defeats in the last 6 games. Also, I guess Ten Hag could be in trouble. This is a match ball. I think a lot of pressure on Man United shoulders. Dani, they don't look good at all so far this season. And Galatasaray, we might have thought that they were the dark horse of this group. I don't know, after this draw at home, don't know if they can put a fight against Man United and at least get a draw here, and who knows what can happen in this group.
It's going to be tough because for all their problems that Manchester United have, I think they are a much stronger side than Galatasaray, who, by the way, only kept 2 clean sheets in the last 8 games. I think they might get outscored. They might concede a few, but they got goal scorers in their side, Galatasaray, from Mertens to Icardi to Zaha to Ziyech. So they're going to pose a threat to Manchester United. But, Manchester United, it's difficult to analyze because they take 1 step forward and 2 steps backwards. They lost the unbeaten record against Brighton after 31 games at home, and they won 2 games back-to-back because the League Cup against Palace. Palace made a lot of change, and they lost again against Palace. So it's 2 back-to-back defeats. This is the worst Premier League starts in the history. And it is clear that there was a time when going to the Old Trafford and winning felt almost impossible. Since Alex Ferguson is no longer the manager of Manchester United, winning at Old Trafford, it's doable, and many teams have done it. And Manchester United, despite the very good home record, have got an habit of conceding goals at home, conceding goals in European ties, Europa League, Champions League, etc. So that's why my pick here is above to score 184, which I'm not surprised to see the odds, which are not that high, to be fair. Manchester United lost 6 of the last 13 UCL games, as many as they suffered in their previous 80 games in the competitions, of course, going back to Sir Alex Ferguson era. Galatasaray, as I said, I mentioned, they got goal scorers. It could be above to score and over 2.5 goals as well. Let's stick with above to score 184.
Icardi to score, someone said Icardi, he missed that penalty, strange penalty, kind of Johan Cruyff style. In the Turkish league, I will never bet on Man United again in 2023. Alvaro, would you follow this recommendation?
Well, I'm focusing on something else. Both teams to score 175. I like it. I also like Galatasaray to score over 0.5 goals in the first half. Galatasaray to score in the first half, basically. 275 is pretty decent. Why? Because Manchester United has many absentees in defense. I think Wan-Bissaka won't make it for the game. Luke Shaw and Reguilón are out. And also Lisandro Martinez, who is going to be out for 2 months because he's got a foot injury. So Manchester United is playing with a makeshift defense. The other day, Amrabat played in one of the most strange positions I've ever seen against Crystal Palace. When Manchester United was defending, Amrabat was a left back. But when Manchester United had the ball, Amrabat became the right defensive midfielder. It didn't make any sense. Instead of going from the left back to the left defensive midfield, he went from the left back to the right defensive midfield to play alongside Casemiro. It's a position that obviously requires Amrabat to be tactically very disciplined. And I think that he has been in the club for a month. I mean, he's not ready to do these things. And then at Manchester United, it feels like nothing is in place. It's like an untidy bedroom. All the furniture are out of place. Mason Mount, when Amrabat goes to the holding position, Mason Mount becomes kind of a player in the left channel, but very far away from the box as well. So at the end of the day, you've got many guys who are not in their preferred positions. And, that makes it very difficult for Manchester United to make any sense. They finished the game against Crystal Palace with Harry Maguire as a pretty much nominal striker because they needed to score a goal, and Diogo Dalot and Amrabat as the centre backs. They are in a proper mess right now. I don't like them. And Casemiro is suffering a lot. Number one, because his ball control has been sloppy. But number two, because I think that Erik ten Hag for this summer had a very clear idea. Sign Onana and let's start playing from the back better than last season. But the centre backs picked injuries. So therefore, that plan was blown away. And Casemiro is also suffering from it. Because he cannot trust on some of the defenders. The defenders don't trust this Casemiro right now. And, it's like a chain of events, cause-consequence, that makes Manchester United weaker than they should be at this stage of the season, especially if we take into consideration how strong they look back in March. When it comes to Galatasaray, look, they haven't lost it this season. Icardi is the league's top scorer, and I think that he can be dangerous for this game. Then Aktürkoğlu is the top assister in the Turkish league as well, so why not to think that he can provide some good passes to the players up front. As I said before, the absentees in Manchester United defense point me in the direction of both teams to score, which pays, in my case, 175. Daniele said 184. Well, it's going to be in the region of 180 then.
Okay, you both think there will be goals in Old Trafford. Galatasaray to win the Champions League. Christian is telling us this is 251. The odds. So for 10 euros, you would get 2,050 euros and 500 euros. So a good amount of money. Let's see if the Turkish team can grab a point, at least in Old Trafford, and put Man United in trouble to qualify for the next stage. Let's move on to Group B. Here we have really good games. First stop is in the north of France. Lens Arsenal, with Arsenal on fire, flying, beat Bournemouth, keeping clean sheets. In the case of Arsenal, they are able to do this, not like Man United. 4 out of the 5 games, they kept a clean sheet. And Lance, Alvaro, they've been improving lately in the French league, at least getting the results. They even deserve that point at the Sanchez Pizjuan, but it's a weaker team. It's weaker than Arsenal, that's for sure.
Yeah, well, Lens, they got 2 straight wins to start with. So since drawing against Sevilla, they have improved, and right now they are out of the relegation zone. They have only recorded 1 win at home, by the way, so it's not that their ground is a fortress. Whereas Arsenal, look, there is
last season it was a really difficult ground to win. Yeah.
No, and I remember that Alain Valnegri was saying that a lot as well, our French football expert too. Look, when it comes to Arsenal, I think that the Champions League is not a place to suffer. This is the best news for Arsenal. It's not a place in which they get heavy defeats. The Champions League for Arsenal this season is pure joy. And it's going to be an ego booster. Last season it was a joy, and this season it's going to be even more so. I think that Arsenal is getting a lot of confidence from the Champions League, and luckily for them, the group stage is not too difficult. And I think that what they got against PSV Eindhoven the other day lifted the morale a lot, and Arsenal is playing good football right now. They scored 4 goals against Bournemouth in the weekend. With Saliba, obviously, Arsenal is a better team, and Kai Havertz scored the goal finally because the team spirit is really good. They let Kai Havertz take a penalty, not Martin Odegaard, Kai Havertz, and Mikel Arteta was very pleased about it because, the players want to integrate Kai Havertz in the team's dynamics. So him scoring a goal was fantastic for him. One thing that I like about Arsenal is, number one, the pressure up front works fantastically. It did against PSV Eindhoven, and it did against Tottenham as well. And number 2, there are for me like 8 players in Arsenal squad who could score 10 goals or more per season. They don't have a great scorer, but they've got around 8 players, and it include over there the likes of Nketiah, the likes of Havertz, maybe Emile Smith-Rowe, who potentially can score up to 10 in a season. So this is the strength of Arsenal, that they've got many candidates who can score, and even Martin Odegaard, he has become a really good goal scorer too, for a midfielder standard. So for this game, I think the odds are pretty inviting, really. Arsenal to win 163, I really like it. And the Asian handicap -1 for Arsenal, 209, I like it a lot too, to be honest.
Well, our audience are also backing Arsenal, even if the odds are not that high to win away in the Champions League in a ground that used to be difficult. Dani, it's true what Alvaro is saying. This season is not a fortress, that's for sure.
The Bollard de l'Hélice is going to be probably Lance's best chance of qualifying and the environment to the next stage. By the way, 25 years ago, Arsenal played here their first ever Champions League games. Let us know in the comments if you know the result of that game. But by the way, Arsenal comes with a lot of confidence here, of course, unbeaten so far in the Premier League. They play Manchester City at home next in the weekend, so that's going to be very, very important. Last season never beat Manchester City. But 3 clean sheets in 4 games for David Raya. Arteta is making the difficult decision, like the keeper one, and so far he's working. The question mark is they're going to be without Bukayo Saka for this trip. They picked up a slight injury in the win against Bournemouth, and it's been so important so far. 5 goals, 2 assists, scored, of course, against PSV Eindhoven as well. I think Arsenal at the beginning of the season, they tried perhaps a little bit too hard when they were at home and they made some individual mistakes, but now they seem to have cut those down and they look really, really well. They got the habits of conceding at home, but not away. 13 clean sheets in the Premier League since the start of last season, 5 more than any other side. So for Lance, it's going to be really difficult to score a goal against this Arsenal side. Of course, the big question mark for Arsenal is this season with the Champions League, they won't be able to make as many rotations as they did last season with the Europa League. And obviously, Arteta needs to be really good at managing the squad. But Lance, 1-0 win against Strasbourg, didn't risk anything, also produced very little. I watched the game, wasn't very entertaining. They lacked the killer instinct. But my question with Lance is, they lost only 2 players, Doku and Fofana, but the rest of the team is the same. Why they're not as good? Maybe last season they overperformed, only lost 1 game at home last season. That was the first clean sheet in 8 games, by the way, at the weekend for Lance. It is difficult. I think really the challenge for Lance is to score a goal. over 2.5 goals for me here, 181.
I'm missing Openda, Dani as well, Lance, a lot this season. We have already a couple of comments telling us the result in 1990.
I think some people got it right.
88. Well, exactly. Doku count for 3 players. Well, let's see if Arsenal, they are winning, keeping a clean sheet. This is the business that they are doing this season. It looks like everyone trusts this Arsenal. Next game in this group, a very open one, PSV. Sevilla, very important one also for the standings because it's very open. I think the second spot in this group. Sevilla, they are not reliable at all when they play away, even in Europe, even in the Europa League where they are the masters. They usually don't get big results away from the Sánchez Pizjuán. So I would think, Dani, that Sevilla could suffer here against the top team in the Eredivisie, even if Sevilla, Alvaro will tell us later, they are improving slightly in the last weeks.
They lost here last season, 2-0. They almost crashed out of the Europa League after winning 3-0 at the Pizjuán. Yes, Sevilla's got some issues with the away form. And so far, only won 2 of the last 5, keeping 2 clean sheets. Against Barcelona, they were okay. They showed some courage, especially in the first half. They played without a central striker. It was Luke Bayern Lamela interchanging positions. But yes, their away record is not great, even at the Camp Nou. 21 years without a win against Barcelona. Away from home, and PSV Eindhoven, I think they were reckless against Arsenal in their 4-0 defeat. But that's what you get from Peter Bosch. You know, high line, really one-on-one marking. And then if you cannot even inflict a little bit of pain on Arsenal, who have got a certain vulnerability at home, your game plan is completely wrong. PSV won at the weekend 3-1 against Volendam. They're top of the league, 7 wins out of 7. Good scoring numbers. But yes, I agree. We talked about this in the previous video with Alvaro, how much we can take into account the league form when it's the Eredivisie with the Scottish League. Yes, we had to take this with a pinch of salt. They scored plenty of goals in the Champions League qualifiers, 14 in 4 games, but yeah, couldn't score against Arsenal. Arsenal winless in the last 15 games in the Champions League, and they've conceded at least 1 goal in each of the last 7 Champions League games. Of course, PSV. X2 for me. Sevilla to bounce back. They were slightly disappointed against Lens after taking the league. 192.
Wow, this is a surprise because I follow more Tyson's comment. I can't trust Sevilla away from home. Alvaro, you are a believer of Mendilibar and Sevilla, also a believer for this game?
Of course, as you said, Sevilla at home is way more reliable, and they have cemented their European success at Sánchez Pizjuán. That is something that cannot be overlooked. But for this game, I am more than ready to back Sevilla with different degrees of handicaps. For example, I can go for a double chance for Sevilla, 189. I like it. Asian handicap plus 0.75 for Sevilla, 166. Less money, less risk. Or even an Asian handicap plus 1 for Sevilla, 145, which sounds to me like some sort of a safe bet as well. Basically, with that handicap, it's very, very easy to understand it. I mean, if Sevilla wins, you win. If they draw, you win. And if they lose by 1, you get a stake refund. And still you get 145. Yeah, I'm going to back Sevilla. I know that PSV Eindhoven have been good. Luke de Jong is playing for PSV, by the way, a player who was very important when Sevilla won the Europa League in 2020 because he scored a goal in the semi-final and the final, I think. But, you know, for Sevilla, the good thing is that, number 1, Nesiri is back. And number 2, Acuña and Ocampos are fit. And I think that these 2 players set the voltage of Sevilla. If Acuña and Ocampos are there, Sevilla is a different side. They've got more electricity, more aggression as well. And you just have to look at the numbers of Lucas Ocampos. I mean, he's one of the players who suffered more faults in the first game of the Champions League and one of the ones who did more faults in the first game of the Champions League. He's there always. Defense, attack, defense, attack. Acuña is the same thing. And, you know, Sevilla, they lost to Barcelona. They weren't bad against them. They are a level behind the European royalty. I'm pretty sure about that. I think that the squad of Sevilla is not as good as some Sevillistas think. But still, double chance for Sevilla, 189.
Let's see. We saw last season these classes, Dani reminded us, and PSV won at home. Someone was asking, by the way, about our Europa League video. Tomorrow we will do an Europa League video with the most interesting games. Both teams to score. For King Messi, for instance, someone is saying that PSV is playing with advantage because Sergio Ramos is playing for Sevilla. Well, Sergio Ramos was good, we have to say, in the game against
Very
Barcelona,
good.
but he, of course, scored that own goal that was in the highlights.
Sergio Ramos is going to be the best defender on the pitch against PSV Eindhoven. Full stop.
Exactly, we can still trust Sergio Ramos. It's just the fate, that he had to score an own goal against Barcelona. Well, let's move on to the next group, Group C, the early kickoff in Berlin, Union Berlin. Sporting Braga. This is one of the games that look more like Europa League, especially when Braga is around.
It was Europa League last season. So, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it looks like more Europa League, but who knows? Maybe they have a chance to qualify, both teams, if they win this game. Both lost in the opening week of this Champions League. Probably both deserve to lose, but they put a fight. Braga against Napoli, Union Berlin against Real Madrid. Is going to be a special day, Alvaro, for Union Berlin. First game to be played at home, although it's not home because it's in the Olympia Stadium. How do you see this one? Because the bookies place Union Berlin really as favorite, but they've been very poor in the last weeks. 5 consecutive defeats in all competitions.
Yep, and 4 straight defeats in the Bundesliga. It's normal that they lost at Santiago Bernabeu. It wasn't that easy for Real Madrid, even though they dominated a lot. And somehow, some knew, and I include myself between those, and that Real Madrid was going to win at the end. And they won. And Jude Bellingham scored for Real Madrid. And Union Berlin did a decent job at Santiago Bernabeu, considering I really like the performance of Kral because he was limping in the first half and he managed to stay in the game. Bonucci, until he was replaced,
Bonucci was great.
He played a really, really good game. And, he was probably the most likely assister for Behrens, who is the striker of Union Berlin, because his Bonucci's long passes were always like spot on or accurate, or at least they had a really good intention. But I think that Union Berlin is suffering from 2 things. Number one, they are not rotating a lot because they don't have a very strong squad, and now they are going to play in the Champions League, and the strike is bad. I mean, 4 straight defeats in the Bundesliga. One of our listeners in the comments have said that 5 straight defeats in all competitions. This is not looking good. They lost to Heidenheim in the weekend, a game that they should have won on paper. And when it comes to Braga, look, a few things that are going to give us hints about where to put our money here. Braga has scored 18 goals in the league. Is the top scorer of the Portuguese Liga. And I think that the goals market can be interesting here. Maybe both teams to score, because Union Berlin, they're going to be oozing and trying to score a goal in their first ever home Champions League game. And I think that Braga has a goal in them. Again, Banza and Ricardo Horta are scoring goals this season, 5 goals each already. They got, capable scorers. And why not to think that this can happen? Both is going to score 185, or otherwise, I'm going to go for another one. Asian handicap plus 0.25 for Braga in the first half. If they draw, you get half a win. And if they win, you win 183.
Well, both teams to score. Jacobo is telling us that it doesn't sound bad. And against Napoli, Dani, Braga conceded a lot of chances. They should have conceded even more goals. Napoli could have won that game 3-4 with 3-4 goals advantages.
But then they won it thanks to an own goal. So Braga maybe could count themselves a little bit alike and hit the post in the last minute with Pizzi. Only 2 clean sheets in 12 games for Braga. They played on first. They won 4-2. So they are definitely the most rested team of all the Champions League teams that play this match day. That was the first back-to-back win in the league this season. Last year, we mentioned 2 1-0 wins for Braga in the Europa League, but Braga finished 3rd in the group with Union Saint-Gilloise and, of course, Union Berlin, and dropped to the Conference League. Was a little bit disappointing. Look, I think Braga are not quite at the same level as Benfica and Porto. I don't know how competitive they're going to be, But also for Union Berlin, look, I think the fact that they're going to play at the Olympiastadion, which is a great stadium, that's where Italy won the World Cup, by the way, instead of, let's put it there, instead of in front of the 20,000 of the Anderalten Forsterei, excuse my German, is it a good thing? When Spurs played at Wembley, did they do well? When Arsenal played at Wembley, did they do well? It lacks something. I don't know. I think Union Berlin last season in Europe were really good. They were very tight at home because they played in that environment. It makes a rocking. I don't know. Put Rayo Vallecano at the Bernabeu. They're not quite the same side. I've been in Madrid recently. Anyway, lost 1-0 away to newly promoted Heidenheim, Union Berlin, 55th of the season against Real Madrid, the lowest expected goals of all the Champions League side, expected goals 0.24. Good for Bonucci. They need to start putting the ball on the net. Both to score no for me, that pays too. By the way, Braga played 13 Champions League group stage matches. None of them finished in a draw. Sometimes something has to give.
Well, Real Madrid did well in Valdebebas, Dani, for instance, in the training ground.
Because it's Real Madrid. Because it's Real Madrid, though. Huh?
Even in the Champions League, they performed well. I remember them beating Liverpool, for instance, in the training ground. Well, let's see if Braga is winning. For instance, Tijani likes the victory for Braga. It pays well. They need to win if they want to have a chance to qualify, because the other game in this group is Napoli, Real Madrid, and we expect both teams to qualify. Dani, Napoli bounce back. There is no Osimhen issue anymore. It looks like the war is over. You trusted Napoli a lot against Lecce, and they delivered indeed. But now they are hosting Real Madrid, and as Real Madrid showed also on Saturday, they still had some firepower in them, and they were able to beat the top of La Liga. Girona still with many issues. Alvaro will tell us about Real Madrid's defense, but Napoli could be a threat for Real Madrid.
They could. 3 news this week. First of all, players and agent look at TikTok. Second of all, it wasn't about TikTok. It's still about a signature in the new contract extension for Osimhen. Third news, Napoli fans enjoy Osimhen for the last 9 months because I believe he's going to leave in the summer, but he's going to play, of course, against Real Madrid. And by the way, Napoli, the social media manager who put that video on TikTok doesn't work for Napoli anymore. They said he had resigned way before. Napoli scored 4 goals against Udinese, 4 goals against Lecce. Are they back on track? They never gone away, really, because it's the same starting 11 that won the Scudetto with Luciano Spalletti, minus Kim Min-jae. Rudy Garcia asked them to play them a little bit more quickly. They asked them to play with less passes. The player that is suffering the most is Stan Lobotka, who is touching 20% less of balls. And if you look at the number of passes completed, it's 20% less. So everything is 20% less in Napoli. They touch the ball less. The ball circulation is less. Probably they defend less well because of that. It's more direct. But they still remain, I think, in Italy, as a starting 11, probably the strongest. The question is now, they're going to face the first top opposition of the season, and they're going to be without Rachmani at the back. Will Nathan play? Will it be Juan Jesus to play? If he does, I think the booking is pretty much odds on for me. And yeah, nothing to say about the top man. Osimhen, 5 goals so far. Kvaratskhelia is improving as well. Let's see if they get better, but obviously do not underestimate Real Madrid. Carlo Ancelotti returning to Napoli. Curious fact, he's staying at the same hotel when he got sacked by De Laurentiis, but they get on really, really well. Carlo Ancelotti couldn't believe he got sacked. Real Madrid won 14 out of 15 games in the Champions League against Italian side. They always won the last 7 away games. So if you look at the odds, Napoli, no favorite, but very high, the win for Napoli, and very high for Real Madrid. I think there is something wrong here. The only concern I got for Real Madrid, and Alvaro will tell me more about it, is obviously the defense. They are fragile without Militao. They will be without a couple of center-backs as well. They got Rudiger and Nacho. Crosses and headers. They conceded 3 headers against Atletico Madrid, and they play against one of the best header of the ball in Serie A. Osimhen, of course, but everything else, to me, points towards a Real Madrid getting results here. Asian handicap 0 for Real Madrid, 195.
Well, the odds for Real Madrid look amazingly well, so high. Real Madrid to win almost the same as Napoli to win. Jacobo is also pointing here Joselu to score. A great start of the season for Joselu. Perhaps Bellingham, Alvaro, you always like also the Vinicius market. For instance, Kick Messi is telling us. How do you see this game, Alvaro?
Well, I think that Real Madrid is a slightly favorite. That's for sure. A double chance for Real Madrid, 152. Could be kind of a safe bet. But I like the draw no bet for Real Madrid, 191. And I'm going to give you all my odds straight away and then a little bit of analysis. Real Madrid to score over 1.5 goals in the game. It doubles up your stake. I like this one. I think that they can score 2 goals or more. And from the individual markets, maybe Vinicius to score 3.1. It's been a while. He hasn't scored. He's been out with an injury, but he's back and he's playing football little by little, getting back to his best form. Vinicius to score 3 goals up your stake, and I like this one. But, one of our listeners says that the Vinicius to score is a safe bet. Maybe I wouldn't go that far. It's a good bet, but not a safe bet exactly. I mean, at the end of the day, he's still finding his best form. That's only for that reason. I think that the Real Madrid shouldn't panic. They have had like a mixed bag of results this season. Losing to Atletico was disappointing, yes, but it's a defeat that they could take on because they still have time to recover from that. The other day, they went to Girona ground and Girona had their chances, but Real Madrid won. And by the way, what a stupid tackle from Nacho. Really bad one, really on Porto. And I feel bad because Nacho is not this kind of guy. I don't know what happened to him. He just lost his mind a little bit. But Nacho is going to start in this game, I guess, Edu, with Rudiger. If Rudiger is kind of fit, who is still doubtful. On the left back, let's see if Mendy or Camavinga is playing. That's my only doubt. And then in the right back, will Carvajal start? I guess so. So. One of the big things that Real Madrid has, one of the big downgrades of Real Madrid, and I don't want to disrespect Kepa, but it's the swap between Kepa and Courtois. Not the swap, sorry. Courtois picked an injury and Kepa has to play because he came like an emergency loan. And I think that what Courtois could save, sometimes Kepa cannot save it. And that's where Real Madrid is conceding a few more goals this season than normal too. I think that Carlo Ancelotti hasn't found his preferred midfield. There is a ridiculous criticism on Kroos. I think that Toni Kroos has been very good for Real Madrid, and he's still 33 years old. He's still pretty much at his prime. And up front, Real Madrid is a better side when they play with Joselu. It's strange to say this because Rodrigo is definitely a better footballer, but Joselu is providing some target man abilities that Real Madrid can use. I think that Real Madrid are going to get the best of this game, and I am very happy to back them with a draw no bet, 191.
I heard that Rodrigo has the worst conversion ratio in whole Europe with chances and goals. He's not scoring. Has to be Joselu, the one to score goals. He's been a great addition to the team, but Real Madrid need goals for sure. Also, great shout to Tchouaméni. He is doing great when he plays for France, and little by little, I think he's finding his spot
improving.
Also. Yeah, for Real Madrid, together with Toni Kroos, I agree with you. He should be in the team. He's still amazing, as Juan Laos is telling us. There is a bit of a Modric case because he was substituted in the Metropolitano against Atletico Madrid at halftime, and since then he has played 0 minutes. So perhaps we have a Modric case. Let's see this big game. Napoli, Real Madrid sounds very good. And Group D, the last group to analyze, the early kickoff. Salzburg, Real Sociedad probably was one of the biggest surprises of the first match day, the victory of Salzburg in Lisbon against Benfica. And this was this close also to see another huge surprise, Real Sociedad beating Inter because they deserve it. They were way better than Inter, and Real Sociedad, Alvaro, you know well, because of the game on Saturday, they are flying right now. It's a very good team in a good moment.
Yes. And they beat Athletic Club Bilbao 3-0. Okay, end of the story. I don't know if you have seen that image, Edu, probably, yes.
I do.
Yeah, that Athletic Club Bilbao fan in the stands on his own among Real Sociedad supporters, all the Real Sociedad supporters just turning their back to the pitch and jumping because that's the way they celebrate. And the Athletic Club Bilbao supporter who was on his own, smiling with stoicism. And,
finally, that's the best part of football, actually.
I think so, yeah. No toxicity. That's a very important thing. And Real Sociedad is in a good moment, of course. We did the show about the Champions League 2 weeks ago, and I was flagging that Oyarzabal wasn't good, and the truth is that he hasn't been as great as he was before. But in the last 3 games, he has scored 3 goals. I think Kubo has been the outstanding player of La Liga so far, altogether with Jude Bellingham, because Kubo has become decisive. That's a funny thing about him. He's not only nice to watch, he's a decisive player too. And Real Sociedad, little by little, are climbing on the table as well, and they haven't lost back-to-back games, by the way, in 2023. This tells you about how competitive Real Sociedad has been this year. They haven't won 2 straight games. They haven't lost 2 straight games in 2023. And, they come at the back of 3 wins in a row. They won the Basque Derby. And in the Champions League, it's a different story, of course, because they haven't won in their last 11 games in the Champions League. This is something that I think that they can correct in this group stage. Really, I really think that they can, but this Real Sociedad will have to start doing the job, maybe against Salzburg this week. Salzburg is in a good moment. I think that they have won the last 2 games with a scoreline of 4-0. But again, how much can we take from local leagues into the Champions League, as Daniele said before? Well, Salzburg, at least the other day in the first game of the group, they won comfortably, I will say. Then at home, they score a lot of goals. They have scored in their last 8 home games in the Champions League. So maybe over there, that points you in the goals market. And they got a very distinct style because they don't keep the possession a lot, but they are the side with most ball recovered in the first game of the tournament of the Champions League, and the team that has committed more faults. You put it together with Real Sociedad, which is normally the team that makes more faults in La Liga, and maybe you can go for the cards market in this game. That can be interesting for you. But my favorite one here will be both teams to score 175 because Salzburg scores and concedes, and because Real Sociedad is in a good moment. That's my favorite. A draw no bet for Real Sociedad, I could take it, but I prefer both teams to score. And maybe from the individual markets, since I praised Kubo before, I could go for him scoring a goal. That pays 375. He's pretty decent.
Maybe we see another good celebration. He was faking an injury and then doing a funny dance. Kubo, what a player. Dani, perhaps the bookies are looking down Salzburg, no, with the shots.
It's an interesting side. Major overall in the summer. Lost the manager Yasle going to Saudi League. Lost, of course, Sesko and other good players. But that's what they do every single summer. They change the game. They change the squad completely. They got a squad. I think the squad started against Benfica. They were all under 23 or 24 years of age. And Simic scored. Born in Milan, son of Dario Simic, defender of Milan, and Inter won the Champions League, of course, his dad. But, it is an interesting side, of course, because they are energetic, they are vibrant, and they were the real surprise on match day 1. They had 2 penalties against Benfica. Miss the first one. They got 8 penalties in the Champions League since 2021-2022. That's a record, by the way. But, of course, in Europe, they always slight unexperienced because, of course, all those changes. Only won 1 games in the last 6 against Spanish sides in all competition. Real Sociedad, I like them against Inter. They got the game plan spot on, high press. They understand Inter were a little bit ponderous at the back, and the first 15 minutes really created a lot of troubles to the Inter back line. Oyarzabal missed the goal, the 2-0, because Sommer made a great save, and in the end, maybe they faded away a little bit. But, they are undefeated in 4 after that defeat against Real Madrid when they held their own. And in my previous video, I was questioning their scoring abilities without the likes of David Silva, of course, last season, and maybe with Oyarzabal not going through a great spell. Last season, they had Sorlot, great scorer, but, still their main center forwards. They scored 5 against Granada, 4 against Getafe, 3 against Athletic. I'm going to go for a nation handicap 0 here for Real Sociedad, 183.
Well, good game. This one, perhaps both teams have a chance to qualify, especially seeing what we saw in match day 1, because at the beginning of the tournament, the favorites were Inter and Benfica. To qualify, Dani, Inter with Lautaro breaking records, first player in Serie A history to score a poker from the bench. But Inter, they have to improve and get the 3 points, improve from the game against Real Sociedad. Also for Benfica, they need to pick a point if they want to have a chance to qualify. We saw this game, Dani, I'm sure you remember really well also last season.
Yes, we saw an Inter won really well in Portugal, and then 3-3, but yeah, they were 3-1 up, and they gave up the last 10 minutes, allowing Benfica to score 2. Yes, Inter rescued by Lautaro in Salerno, left on the bench. The attack with Sanchez and Thuram didn't quite work. As soon as the Argentine came on, they kicked on, but also as soon as Mkhitaryan came on. So that tells you that Simone Inzaghi needs to be really, really careful with the turnover, because he cannot seem to leave a couple of key players out. By the way, Lautaro scored 10 goals in 8 games so far this season. It's 30 goals in 2023. So post-World Cup, he's a new player completely. He's always been good, but more responsibility as well with the armband of Inter. And of the 10 goals he scored, Lautaro, so far this season, 8 of them have been just with one touch in the box. So extremely clinical. By the way, I do like the trivia. So Lautaro scored 4 from the bench, but there is a player in Europe, in the 5 major leagues in European history, that scored 5 from the bench. Who is the player? What's the team? Let us know in the comments. Inter
Mario Gomez.
Mario
Gomez, by any chance?
Close. I go another name. It could have been Mario Gomez. No. Close. No, close. It said that he's close. He's not Miroslav Close. It could have been close. No. Comments down below. 5th clean sheet in 7 games for Inter, by the way. Very improved in Serie A, +6 compared to last season. Again, is the question of the man that that Inzaghi needs to choose. Last season, Inter, I think, won by experience. Benfica playing nice stuff, but an unexperienced backline and midfielder. Inter were able to manage the ball better. Let's see how they do it this season. They are still a team without Brozovic, with Barella looking a little bit unfit. Who knows? But Benfica, they come after a very good win against M-Man Porto, top of the table. They played a very attacking lineup in the Clásico Portugal. Neres, Di Maria, Rafa Silva, behind Petar Musa. Di Maria scored, wasn't a great game. Trubin had to make a couple of saves when the game was still 0-0. That was the first win against Porto since 2018 for a team that last season did so well in Europe, we must say, up to a point, up until they got Inter. They never beaten Inter, by the way, in all competition, a repeat of the 1965 European Cup final won by Inter. Over 2 goals. Over 2.5 goals, 191.
Okay, goals in your tip. Someone is also suggesting both teams to score because Benfica away, they have a good record in the Champions League. Alvaro, how do you see this one?
I think both teams to score is pretty decent here. It pays 180. I think that Inter are going to score, and Benfica has to try to get a point in this game because they started the Champions League in a very disappointing fashion after losing against Salzburg. Benfica is second in the league right now, and I think that they got the quality to score a goal. Di Maria is playing really well. They have lost Gonzalo Ramos, but still the team has many attacking options too. In fact, if I go to the individual market, there is a little bit of a gift in there. Apart from Lautaro scoring, because Lautaro, when he's in a good run, he scores week after week. That will pay 2.4. But Rafa Silva, as they call it in Portugal, to score 5.0. And this is a player who is normally delivering in the Champions League, 30 years old. Now he's at the peak of his powers, basically, and very important for Benfica. But more than the individual markets, I mean, I'm more than happy to stay with both teams to score. Benfica beat Porto in the weekend. Porto was reduced to 10 men very quickly with the send-off of Cardoso, of course, and Benfica had to fight hard for that win. But you know, I think that this is a possibility. Both teams to score. By the way, it's the sixth time of Benfica playing in Milan. They never won there. For a team of the pedigree of Benfica, it's pretty impressive not having won there. But at the same time, you are playing against European royalty, Milan, Inter, so it's not easy, you know. But you know, those will be my odds, definitely.
All right. Well, also Benfica, they lost against Salzburg, reduced to 10 men in the first minutes of the game.
Yes.
Antonio Silva.
A red card. Yeah, he's not in for this game.
So, well, good games. We have on Tuesday, on Wednesday, if some big teams already in trouble, especially Man United or Benfica to qualify for the last 16 round. Dani, are you going to reply to your trivia now? Someone said Lewandowski.
Lewandowski, 5 goals from the bench against Wolfsburg in 2015. That's the only player.
All right, I thought the question was regarding the Champions League. I misunderstood.
No, in the leagues. In the leagues.
Okay.
There are already some requests to create a trivia show with Dani Fisichella as the master and commander.
Depends. I mean,
open
every man has a price in this world. Let's go with the safe bet.
Tell me then your safe bet.
Arsenal to win against Lens away, 167.
And Alvaro, yours?
Asian handicap minus 0.25 for Arsenal, 140.
And I always wanted to be the other guy in the 15, how to be a millionaire, no? This TV show, I always wanted to be the guy asking the questions, actually. It would be good. And Dani, Yoraka?
Manchester United, Galatasaray, over 2.5 goals. PSV Sevilla, over 1.5 goals. Union Berlin, Braga, under 3.5 goals. Red Bull Salzburg against Real Sociedad. Double chance for the Spanish side is X2. Total odds 4.25.
Dani Saka, focus on goals. Alvaro, yours?
Edu, if you want to be the presenter of that show, you have to work on your eyebrows and raising as well.
Totally, the Spanish one for sure.
Look at Carlo Ancelotti and learn a thing or two about raising eyebrows. Or eyebrow in singular. Mayaka will be Arsenal to win, Bayern to win and over 2.5 goals in that game against Copenhagen, and an Asian handicap of plus 0.25 for Real Madrid. Altogether 4.24.
Okay, I'm ready for the challenge, by the way. Well, thanks everyone for watching. Remember that we have another video for the games on Wednesday. On Tuesday also we will publish our Europa League video. Thanks in the meantime, and don't forget, if you enjoy our videos, just support us so we can be here long time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
See you.